Welcome to the seal session of the Southwest Marine Ecosystems meeting. First up, we have Sue Sayre, who's going to give us the updates and highlights from 2020 from the Cornwall Seal Group Research Trust.
Hi Brendan, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen and I can see you. Over to you, Sue. Welcome and thank you very much.
Hello everybody, and massive thanks for joining our seal webinar. We're super excited to tell you about our amazing seal updates and highlights from 2020. We have some great speakers, so I'll whiz on through. Please join us on our social media platforms, and we look forward to making contact with you. So I have quite an amazing life. I get to survey seals in all sorts of places, not so much from the air, but from the land and the sea, and then we gather the evidence that our volunteers collect to share with national media or international conferences or wherever we can, anyone who is willing to listen to hear about our amazing seals. So this is our globally rare speciality species. There are about the same number of grey seals in the world as there are people in Cornwall. They are protected, and we have 34% of the world's population of grey seals in the UK, but there are still more red squirrels in the UK than there are grey seals. And grey seals are important to our coastal economies because they help diversify them by providing a reliable and predictable tourist attraction. We had our 20th birthday in 2020, which was super exciting, and it's amazing to be doing this today just to see how far we've come compared to when it was just me in 2020. Huge thanks to all our funders who enable us to employ marine rangers, without whom most of the work that we want to do couldn't get done. The 2021 Green Recovery Challenge Fund will be our main funder. So we spent most of the year with 4, and then Joe joined us to become our 5th ranger in 2020. We have from right to left Emily, who has now sadly left us, who was our creativity and activity ranger, Katie, who is our research ranger, Sarah, our Sanctuaries at Seas ranger, Marion, our amazement and discovery ranger, and now Joe, who is our digital ranger. Joe is key to our future because our work is all about engaging a much wider audience. You guys are all already part of the cause, you already believe what we do, but we need a much wider audience to be taking action to help our marine environment. So for us, it's all about partnership between us and seals and people and other organisations. We want to grow the audience for marine conservation. So this is the main photo is ghost net busters removing a hideous polystyrene buoy, mooring buoy from a seal haul out beach. Very sensitively, we suddenly realised there was a molted seal pup there. But that prevented that buoy from breaking into millions of tiny fragments that would have been in our marine environment for centuries. We've also tried to work with local artists, and this is an exhibition we did at the Kurt Jackson Foundation just before lockdown 1 down in West Penwith. So for us, it's all about sharing our seas successfully, and we want to enter from the Anthropocene into a new geological era of the Ecozoic. And if you've never heard that expression, I first read about it in this book, The Seabird's Cry. It's a fabulous concept of a time when we actually coexist with other species. And we appreciate that every other species has its own umwelt, its own understanding of the world that is different from ours and that we will probably never have an opportunity to experience, but which we appreciate and coexist alongside. So we had our 20th birthday conference in July, I think it was over a week. And we had masses of views of 18 short talks. They're all still there on our new YouTube channel if you want to watch them. They've had lots of views, as I said, but we engaged over 8,000 people in our work last year. We want to grow that a lot because we need far more percentage of population engaged in marine conservation. Incredibly, our social media is going on from strength to strength, and one of our videos, the Lucky Bunting video, had 800,000 plus views in about a month and a half, most of them in India, so that was definitely a new audience. For us, every seal counts. We do photo ID on individual animals. This is the mainstay of our work. The middle seal, the most beautiful one in the photo, is Shadow Puppet, who I've known since 2000. To the right of her is Tulip, and to the left is Fairy Girl. For us, this is what the work is all about. And all these amazing people, plus many, many more who we couldn't show you, are all volunteers who survey and study the seals on their patch or act as ambassadors for them. So what did all these people, amazing people, achieve in 2020? Well, we now have 20 plus community-based survey hubs, and we had records from 365 volunteers who did an amazing 12 surveys each day, every day, right the way throughout the year. We managed 6 boat surveys covering 280 locations, and we processed almost 140,000 photos. And why did we do that? Well, from that data, we got 12,000 IDs with a maximum of 122 in a single survey, which is incredible. We saw 7 seals that we first met in 2000, again in 2020. So that was quite exciting, good old friends. But on the downside, we had 777 observations, 19 in one go, of 94 different entangled seals, which is clearly a big issue for them. 946 seals were disturbed in 2020 in 156 incidents. And we had, on a more positive note, 790 identifications, 12 at a max of 121 tagged seals who have been given a second chance by organisations such as the Cornish Seal Sanctuary and RSPCA West Hatch and Malladams. So we're able to help some of them, which is great news. And why is all that data important? Well, we give seals a voice. So we managed to give seals a voice in 36 public consultations in 2020. We were consulted for our advice about a law change to the Conservation of Seals Act, which is a huge achievement in 2020. I'll talk more of that later. We participated in the Seal Network UK and Clean Catch UK, which I will talk about in my last talk. And we have 1 SSSI added to the 2 existing ones, where it is now a criminal offence to damage, destroy, or even disturb seals in these 3 particular areas. And some of our conservation work included working with local partners, again, National Trust, Natural England, to put signs up or information banners up. We had 3 temporary closures for pup sites to protect them from disturbance, to keep that mother pup bond tight. And we had 3 major gear removals with organisations, again, more partners, Clean Ocean Sailing, Ghost Net Busters and Fathoms Free, really major ones that made a big difference to the marine environment. We had 1 pup watch for Lucky Bunting and her little pup, Little Flag, and we worked with 4 global partners. So an amazing year. We had some pretty good TV coverage in 2020, Country Files, Spring Watch and Simon Reeve in Cornwall. We had 1 national newspaper article about disturbance, and our focus for 2021 is going to be this Watching Seals Well work, as I will talk about later. Emily, our creativity and activity ranger, did some new beautiful designs, not only that timeline you saw before, but a new leaflet, eco tips that we can all follow to make a difference to the marine environment, and one about why grey seals are incredible. So some key findings, because we have a long-term data set, and there have been some shifts according to that long-term data set. Our peak haul-out season used to be April, and it seems to have shifted quite a lot in quite a short period of time, and in the last 2 years it's been February. So potentially, you know, an impact of climate change, we don't know, but either way, peak haul-outs are getting earlier, as are peak pupping season. So pupping used to be October and November, and now peak pupping season seems to be September followed by August. Not only is the pupping season earlier, but it also appears to be more compressed and shorter. This is a very sad photo. A pup that's got separated from its mum, probably in a big storm, trying to suckle from a larger pup, which is suckling from its mum. Really, really sad photo. We've also had some haul-out changes. So a lot of our mainland haul-outs are only used during the non-summer months, but this particular haul-out on the north coast started being used in that gap period during the summer. This is them proving the point. Similar things happened on the south coast with summer haul outs as well at a site that's not usually used then. So this is a change in behaviour too. We also had a haul out where a site was abandoned or almost abandoned, and then a new site close by started being used, which is fascinating behaviour change. And we had a new haul out site that hadn't previously been used at all on the south coast being occupied, as well as a new pupping site. This was the first live pup on one of the south coast sites. So it's quite exciting times, and it shows how important this long-term data set is in order to find out what's going on. So on to some individual seal stories. This is what we major in really. So this is Ghost. She's an incredible seal. You can see her seal visit calendar, ID calendar, years across the top, months down the side, and I think you can probably tell, even if your screen's very small, that we only get to see her during the pupping season. She's only ever been seen at this site. We never see her outside of this time, and she's a world record breaker. She's had 17 pups in 18 years, and that's a truly amazing feat. You can see she didn't return in 2018. There was a gap in her visits then. This is Quaver Star. She's actually probably got a cold because she's got some bloody snot, bless her. But seals recover from these colds just like we do. But you might be able to tell from her visit pattern calendar that she spends a lot of the time on the south coast, and then seasonally during the winter she comes and visits the north coast. So seals have repeated seasonal patterns, many of them, that we're now getting to be familiar with. We had 118 common seal sightings in 2020, and the most regularly sighted one is Ellis, who is an adult male, here shown on a mooring buoy in the fowl. Common seals are the only seals agile enough to launch themselves onto mooring buoys and balance without falling off the other side. So he's quite amazing. You can see he's got some big scarring on his back that seems to be some sort of tracking infection, but we've seen him quite a lot. So we do have common as well as grey seals. 2020 saw Gareth Richards find our first link up to Gower in South Wales, which is great. Not only did we manage to find a link from Gower to North Devon, but we also managed to find one from Gower to Cornwall. So that's well and truly put the Gower Peninsula on the seal linked up map. Sarah, who's going to talk to you later, is probably going to also mention this seal. This is Flower. Jenny Simpson from the Camel Estuary sent us a photo of a seal behaving strangely around a ferry. Turns out that strange behaviour was normal for her because she comes from Brixham, where she engages a lot with members of the public. So this amazing seal returned then back to Brixham and swam 300 kilometres in 3 days. We know they can do those rates. It's reported at being doing that, but it's just great to catch one through photo ID on our patch doing the same thing. This was an RSPCA Maladams rehab seal, who is the first link up we've had with Sidmouth in South Devon. So that was great to see. And Sarah might also mention this seal, Lucille. She is usually seen in Lou, which is the dark burgundy, between April and September. But she suddenly put in an appearance in Brixham in South Devon, which was great to see because it not only links Brixham to Cornwall, but all the way to North Cornwall, way up on the north coast. And in contrast, some seals appear to be stopping visiting some sites. This is Seahorse, and she's one of them who appears to have stopped visiting West Cornwall altogether. One of the theories why that might be the case is to do with disturbance. That site's very heavily disturbed. We've had up to 10 disturbance incidents in 70 minutes at its worst. And if you know what to look for, this is what you see after a disturbance incident. So if you look on the rocks, after a stampede into the sea, you see blood trails, sometimes multiple blood trails as seals injure themselves by racing over the rocks. Obviously, this was taken with a 3000mm zoom lens from the cliff top. So you need to know what you're looking for in order to have a chance of seeing it. So disturbance is a big issue, more of that in the next talk that I do, but entanglement also is. This is a very sad case of legs. The main photo shows her 3 weeks after she was entangled in a loose bit of monofilament fishing net. Within 3 weeks, it had completely cut her skin right the way around her neck. And the photo inset is 2 years later. We have not yet been able to rescue this seal, and you can see how hideously her wound has developed during that time. And even worse, not all seals get to make it. This is a photo of Wide Eyes Wolf, who was dead on my survey site. He's one of many young males who don't seem to be making it to old bones, which is really rather worrying. So watch this space for work on that too. However, some seals are lucky and get rescued. This is Empanada being rescued by Dan Jarvis and Nat Waddington from British Divers Marine Life Rescue. This incredible seal went into rehab at the Cornish Seal Sanctuary, was released on the Lizard on the south coast of Cornwall, and within 12 days she had swum all the way around those treacherous waters at Land's End and reappeared on the beach that she was rescued from. So at a very young age, she was capable of doing an amazing journey as well. So basically, these are our first seal links. These are where seals in Cornwall have all been linked up to, as far as the Isle of Man, the Isles of Scilly, Wales, France, Ireland, Belgium and Holland. So what have we learnt from our work? Well, our key learning points are that seal society is complicated, way more complicated than we would like to give it credit for. It's that ecozoic thing of seals know what they're doing, but we've just got a bit of way to go to find out and understand what's going on. Like humans, there's no such thing as an average seal. Who of us knew that seals were so well travelled from Cornwall? Obviously, they need joined up protected habitat for different seasons in their life, and no matter what we think, we are definitely impacting their health, welfare and mortality. If you'd like to read our annual report, it's downloadable off our website in the latest news section, and please do support us. We have an online shop and a wild seal supporter and adoption scheme. And I'm going to finish my end talk talking about the British Divers Marine Life Rescue Crowdfunder, which is launched today and desperately needed. More of that later. Thanks very much to all our volunteers who submit records from Wales all the way round to Hampshire. They are our eyes and ears for seals. They survey, process photos, make and confirm IDs, digitise data, analyse data, report, write, fundraise, and most importantly, are ambassadors and champions for seals on their community patch. Who knew volunteers in Cornwall were so amazing? Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Sue, and you've left plenty of time for questions. You actually were shocked in your timing, which was amazing. Well done.
Thought you out, Brendan.
Yes, so I've got a few questions in the chat. I'm just going to read them out if people put the questions in the chat. So Julian Jury, talking about ID, how do you decipher between each seal's pelage? Surely that must take a lot of expertise.
Well, it's actually child's play, believe it or not. We're all very good at recognising fur patterns. Kate Williams is an expert in this. You just need to recognise a tiny bit of the pattern, and as soon as you see that pattern again, you realise you know it and you remember the seal. But we have a clever system of using tag keywords. So if we see a mushroom or a cat or a whisker or a book in any of our seal photos, then we label that seal with those tag words. And then if we see the tree again or the cat again, we search for those in our catalogues. It used to be just me doing photo ID, and now there are at least 20 hubs, all of whom have a photo ID coordinator who do this work. So actually it's easier than you might think.
Okay, thank you very much. Stephen Church asks, do common seals and grey seals get on?
Well, that's a very good question, because if you believe some of the things that the Sea Mammal Research Unit come out at the minute, you might think that greys are displacing commons. I think it's way more complicated than that. In our experience, they coexist very happily. And I think possibly they have different feeding strategies for sand eels, which is why in some areas, grey seals are thriving, and common seals, which eat the same things, are not, but they require a greater density of sand eels in order for their feeding strategy to be successful. And maybe they're not such, not such generalist feeders either. So I think there is a very complicated relationship there that we have no idea about yet.
Okay, thank you. Ocean Fox is asking, how has the pandemic affected the disturbance ratio?
Very good question. Cut a long story short, with our broad brush data that requires some work in order to make this scientific and proper. But basically, we had a drop in disturbance between February and July by about 60%. However, August was our worst August on record. So good and bad.
Okay, and maybe we can look forward to another busy summer this summer.
We're ready for that.
Okay. Lots of lovely, amazing presentations. You're amazing, Ace, etc. But then there's a hard question, which is, has there been any work looking into using AI, and I presume that means artificial intelligence rather than insemination, to automatically do the photo ID on seals?
Oh yes, so that's not a difficult question. That's a great question. Basically, we've worked with one company, Head Forwards, with Richard, to try and develop some photo ID AI software. And Microsoft funded us to do that, and he went to a conference in America. But basically, the feasibility study came back saying it didn't seem to be a good premise. Basically, you chuck a load of photos at the computer, it learns that seal, and then it can predict a shortlist for seals it could be. However, you need so many photos to start with for the computer to learn the seal. That way wasn't going to be successful. So we've learned from that feasibility study, and we now have a new company, Flomo, volunteering to work on it with us in order to pursue that. Obviously, that would make a huge difference. I have to say, in defense of our volunteers, if they know the seal, their brain is quicker than a computer, amazingly. However, computer photo ID would super help with the seals that link our sites, or for the seals we don't know. It would save a lot of time.
Okay. Next one, John Arnott. How do you respond to people who are worried that the seals are eating all of our fish?
A very good question. Just about the fact that seals are top predators, and we need top predators to help keep our marine ecosystem in balance. Unfortunately, the thing that tends to send our ecosystem out of balance tends to be us. And therefore, you need to see the ecosystem as a whole and understand that if you have thriving top predators, you have thriving fisheries. Win-win.
Okay, thank you. Jürgen Ziegler, I think, who was from Austria earlier in the chat, has asked if you could post the homepage and the YouTube channel in the chat. Maybe somebody from the SEAL group could do that. Jenny Atkinson is saying that Seb and Ava from Bodrigi Academy would like to know how you choose the names for the seals.
Well, they're just based on those fur patterns. So Man with a Horse and Cart is named Man with a Horse and Cart because she has a picture of a man with a horse and cart on her. Tulip because she's got a tulip. Ghost because she's got a ghost, etc. Great question. Love it. Thanks, guys.
Daisy Johnsey is asking, have there been any instances of hybrid seals?
Very good question. The answer is we don't know. However, I've seen quite a few seals that I think look like hybrids. In theory, it's genetically possible, but they would be sterile, so would not multiply themselves. Brendan, I'm thinking we should move on, should we?
Yes. No, you've still got time for questions. I'm just trying to see, there's a lot of comments that maybe you can chat with people after the effect. So here's one that's kind of a different theme from Brett Bader, and then we'll take one from Haley. Brett, will the project make use of drones to help with surveys for harder to reach places?
So Brendan knows the answer to this as well, because we worked with Dr. Matthew Witt and Dr. Lucy Hawkes from Exeter University when we did our last surveys on the Isles of Scilly to work with a guy using a drone that had an ordinary camera and a thermal image camera on. The Scillies are very difficult islands to walk all over to survey seals, and drones are a no-brainer for that kind of habitat. And infrared is key because seeing a seal on a rock with an ordinary camera can be very challenging. However, obviously drone use around seals is something that we need extreme caution with. They have to be very high, they have to have their lights masked, they have to be as quiet as possible. And of course, all National Trust properties don't permit drone use without a license. So it also has to be licensed. But yes, there is definitely a place for drone use in surveying for seals.
Hayley Roberts asks, is there anything being done to stop seal entanglement?
Very good question. Obviously, there's the solution, which is not a solution because it's end driven. You know, cleaning up beaches really helps. Even picking up tiny bits of net makes a difference. However, we need to stop nets being lost at source. We've been working with ABPMER to try and look at husbandry techniques that would prevent net loss. The Global Ghost Gear Initiative, we work with them because, you know, things like marked nets or nets with transmitters, the key would help. But the key thing is having a no blame culture with lost fishing gear so that fishers can genuinely, they can't afford to lose gear, but if they lose gear, they tell us so that we can enable a retrieval and then a return to them. You know, it's not about blaming, it's about trying to find positive solutions to a global issue.
Good point to end. Thank you very much, Sue. So on behalf of the 300 people that are on the meeting, thank you ever so much. Some people might be messaging you as friends saying, I can't get into the meeting. Tell them it's recorded and they should have been on time. Maybe I could ask people from the SEAL group to deal with the myriad questions and comments but maybe tagging them in the chat by the name so that they know to look at the comment, and there's lots of interesting things going on in the chat.
Okay,
so,
hopefully some of our rangers can do that for us.
Yeah, well, they can get right into the chat and then tag the people. So we're going to move on now, Sue. Thank you ever so much. That was brilliant. Next up, we've got Kate Williams, who's the photo ID coordinator up in North Devon and Lundy, and she's going to talk to you about the work of the group up there.
Hello, yes. I'm the hub coordinator for the photo ID for the North Devon SEAL group. I don't actually live in North Devon, I live in West Cornwall. So I asked Sue if I could have a go at some photo ID, and I've been doing it ever since. So I do try and get up to see the seals in North Devon as often as possible, because there's nothing better than seeing seals in the wild. Grey seals can be seen all around the coast of North Devon, and we know from records sent to the Cornwall SEAL group, we know they favour certain locations for resting and where they can be easily seen without disturbing them. We also know that females have their pups on the beaches of Lundy Island, and plenty of care is taken there to minimise disturbance for them. We record from observations sent to us and more details about each seal by photo identification. So why photo identification? Well, each grey seal has a unique pattern, and photo identification is non-invasive. We go out with cameras, take a photograph of hopefully the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the seal, and then we create a catalogue that helps us to re-identify them when they're seen again. This seal is also called Ghost. Ghost seems to be a pattern that people do see in the fur patterns of seal, but this Ghost is from North Devon, and you can see from her map she does travel to West Cornwall. She's the seal that started the North Devon project. She's #1 in the catalogue, and she's quite a celebrity, but more about her later. So from the information that we gather, we create these seal calendars. Sue's already showed you one of these. Each calendar is for one seal with the year across the top and months down the side and their visits inside. The left-hand seal has only ever been seen at North Devon. We haven't identified her anywhere else, so all her cells are grey coloured. And she's obviously a summer visitor. They come to the site that's monitored to haul out and rest during the summer. There's a lot of pregnant females come and rest. The other calendar is for Ghost, number 1 in the catalogue, and you can see there's different colours in her catalogue because she's seen in West Cornwall. So the pale blue is the West Cornwall colours. She goes to have her pup and she goes to rest there. And the grey is when she's seen in North Devon. So the aims of the project are to discover the number of seals visiting a site and the seasonal use of a site, the age and sex information about the seals there, and potential threats. This information we hope will be able to inform conservation decisions and protect the seals. So what's involved? Well, grab a tide table. Low water is best time to see the seals hauled out. A camera, binoculars or both, record what you see and send your photos in. The email that we use is sightings@cornwallsealgroup.co.uk, and I'm actually the person at the end of that email, and I will distribute your photographs to the different hubs so that they can process them. We'll try and match them with the catalogue and get back to you to tell you the stories of the seals. Photos can be sent using WeTransfer or Dropbox, so don't worry about the number of photos, just get them sent in. So the North Devon site in summary, well, 2020 was obviously a difficult year, but our main surveyor there is local, so he was able to get out and survey in his usual way. Most of the surveys he does at low water. And I've just started working on the data, and there's much to learn from it. So it's not fully analysed yet, but I'm hoping just to show you a little bit of information about this site. So it's mostly used in the summer months. This has been consistent over the 10 years of data we have, that the seals are around in the winter, but not seen very often, but seen regularly in the summer. Not a huge site, the maximum of sort of about 20 seals. They're nearly all adult females. They're mostly pregnant and they move away to pup in September. But they're faithful to the site. We've got at least 24 that could consider to be semi-resident to the site that we re-identify regularly. It is mostly females, and I do joke that the ladies don't let the boys haul out, and this is partly true, although we do see a few haul out. So here they are, here's the ladies hauled out on their site. You can see that we're still getting visits from numbers relatively low in the catalogue. So number 6, that's Starfish, and number 12, Smiling Monster. And then there's a number 421 there, and we're up to nearly 600 now, but obviously they do return each year. Because I was working with the North Devon group, I got involved in looking at some of the seals on Lundy Island. The warden there is quite limited in his time for recording the seals, but he does try, and he always records the pups each year. And we found out about Lundy Island. The seals are there all year round, and they haul out to rest. They're very mixed in age and sex. Pups are born on several beaches around the island as early as mid-August, and photo ID has confirmed that mum's return. The warden's very proactive in protecting the seal pupping beaches. With Lundy so close to North Devon, we were expecting to find a lot of the North Devon ladies visiting Lundy Island, but so far this hasn't turned out to be the case. We haven't actually managed to match up one of the North Devon ladies with a mum and her pup on the island, but we live in hope. This is Landing Bay Lady, one of the regular returning females returning to Lundy Island to have her pup. She's been recorded since 2017, so we're certain that she's a returning mum. So in general, 2020 was an interesting year. There was some early hauling out as early as April, maybe because it was quieter. During the first lockdown period, Dave was able to still go out and survey, but there were no trip boats coming around to look at the seals, so it was a little quieter, and he reported the coast bath as being quieter. But summer in North Devon was busy. It soon changed. Coast bath users and people needing to get out, and lots of people holidaying at home in North Devon for the summer. Lockdown gave people time that they needed to fill, and several fishermen took rods down to the rocks to fish. This was a big change for the site during lockdown. Fishermen either disturbed the seals off the rocks or stopped them from using the rocks. It was such a shame. The trip boats started again, all masked up, but it is unusual for them to disturb the seals. One seal, observed as being blind in one eye, could be disturbed by the sound of them approaching if the wind brought the sound towards her. Perhaps being partially blind made her more alert to the sounds. This photo in the bottom corner was taken on the day that it happened. The blind seal has already gone, and the next seal going in is a younger female, probably disturbed by the first one going in. The other two just looked up and stayed put. There was also disturbance from people trying to get photos. It's a bit unnecessary. You can get a good photo without getting this close, as proved by Dave with his surveys. The seals went into the water, and that spoilt the day for 17 other people who were considerately watching from a distance. On the day the photographer visited, there was only one seal hauled out. He was obviously being very careful, and the seal did stay put for quite a while, but eventually gave up and went back in the water. What the photographer didn't realise is that he had stopped 9 other seals from hauling out that day. We know this because they were photographed and ID'd, and they include seals who regularly haul out there. The highlight of my year is always the arrival of these beautifully patterned females. You get acquainted with their patterns for photo ID. I refer to Sue as it being a bit like doing a jigsaw. I love doing jigsaws. So basically you're looking at a pattern on the seal and trying to match it with the lid of the box of the jigsaw. You get the occasional plain one, but most of them are very beautifully patterned. So here you go, have a go, spot the pattern. Somebody had already asked about seal names. They're not really names, they're keywords to the patterns that you can see in their fur pattern. But of course they do stick. So man kicking leaves in the middle there was one that I saw early on, and she's always been called man kicking leaves. So one of my highlights of 2020 was seeing Dribble's teeth. Now, Dribble is a seal, the first seal I added to the photo identification catalogue when I took it over. And we didn't realise at first from the photographs that she had this wonky jaw. But she was obviously quite easy to re-identify. The Dribble name comes from the long dribbly pattern on the right-hand side of her neck. But she actually opened her mouth, and Dave got a photo of her teeth, so we could actually see a little more detail of how wonky her jaw is. But she's become a regular now, and she's a large adult female. And then there was Ford. Now he is one of the males that started reappearing regularly. When I first recorded him, he was a sub-adult male, and he's quite plain, so he got called four white spots in a square, but I shortened it to Ford because I could never remember which way around the 4 white spots in a square went. He arrived back on the 16th of July this year, and he's quite a hit with the ladies. So here he is having a little play in the water with one of the long-time regulars, Butterfly A. Oh, I think I've missed a side there. Oh, there we go. Perhaps I didn't put it in. We also had this cute Taggy arrived. This is the smallest seal I think we've ever recorded at the site. We don't get very many juveniles. And eventually Dave managed to photograph her tag number, and she was rehabilitated at West Hatch, RSPCA West Hatch. She hauled out quite confidently alongside one of the adult females. We also got some records of Taggies near Lundy Island. This one photographed by a diver. And although the tag is a little worn and we couldn't quite make out the number, a little bit of photo identification enabled us to really match her up as being Picasso, one of the RSPCA's car-themed names. Rescued in Wales 2017 and released in North Devon in 2018. And another one turned up. This is Cayman. This is from the Cornwall Seal Sanctuary. Again, quite easy to match with the pattern, but we did actually get a good photograph of the tag in that case. And Ghost 2, who's #1 in the North Devon catalogue, came to Cornwall to have her pup. Now, this was a real treat to me. Normally she has her pup on a cove, which is quite difficult to view into. You have to hang over the edge a little bit, not really quite my scene. But this year she pupped on a different beach. only a few miles from where I live, and I was able to go and see her with her pup. By the 22nd of October, she was back in North Devon. The Landi Pups started arriving. The team there photographed this very fat pregnant female, and later again with her pup, but we haven't managed to identify her yet. And short-legged dog returned to have her pup on Lundy. She's quite distinctive with a very black nose, but she's got quite a lovely pattern too. And finally, Scarf. Now, this is a seal with quite a long story. You can see she's got an entanglement scar, but she was actually rescued in West Cornwall as a white coat pup in 2010, so we know exactly how old she is. She was rehabilitated at RSPCA West Hatch, and we believe that she must have been entangled after her release, but managed to pop the net or whatever it was she was entangled her, and she's grown up into a lovely big adult male. She was last recorded in November on 27th of October and appeared hugely pregnant, but we still don't know where she has her pup. But she's one of my favourites, and always a joy to see her return each year. That's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kate. On behalf of the still nearly 300 people on the call, there's this very active chat going on in the chat, and it's hard to tease apart what's ongoing chat and what's actually the questions for this session. So it may be that others want to chime in, but there certainly was a few comments when you mentioned fishers and disturbance related to fishers and also to boats and jet skis, and what work is being done to explain and work on that is a theme that's coming through from the comments and the questions.
It is quite hard because we're not local to the North Devon site, but we have, Sue and I have been up and done quite a few talks up there, and there is quite an active group there trying to think up some plans and get people to be aware of the situation with the seals. The trip boats really don't disturb them too much, and I have phoned the trip boats on the occasions that they have, and they're very considerate about it, because obviously if the seals aren't there, their customers are disappointed, so it's quite important to them not to disturb them off the rocks. The fishermen walking down onto the rocks was new this year. Some of the fishing boats, small local fishing boats, come in and the seals don't seem to be affected, but the people walking in from behind them seem to affect them. And of course, it brought to mind the fact that if the people go down before the seals arrive, what they don't realise is they're changing the behaviour of the seals for that day by not allowing them to haul out. So it is something that we need to think about a little bit more. The number of people, there's always quite surprising that the seals aren't disturbed more. Whenever I've been up, there's always a lot of people standing watching the seals, and they don't seem to be too concerned. It's just as people move down the rocks that's a problem.
Okay, thank you. A question on pelage, which is your thing. When do common seals get their spots and at what age? And it's actually from Joanne, not Stephen, but she's obviously using Stephen's.
Well, I am actually from Essex originally, and we used to survey the common seals in the Blackwater estuary in Essex, and they always seem to be spotty, even from pups, as soon as they've got their pelage. But they're the most impossible thing to photo ID. They really, a bit like a Laura Ashley print dress. They've got lots and lots of tiny flowery patterns on them, and we do work hard at trying to do them, but they're not easy to do. It's a matter of seeing the same patterns and getting good photographs so that you can compare sides.
Okay, I'm trying to keep the questions to the ones germane to your presentation. There's one on what plans do you have for engagement in Lundy over 2021, restrictions permitting?
Well, we haven't got any plans at the moment, but we would like to get over there. We've done presentations over there before. We took Septimus, the seal skeleton, over there, and that encouraged a lot of people to start sending their photographs in. We've been, constantly in touch with Dean. His team on the island are very hard working, but they are limited because they have to do quite a lot of other survey work. But yes, we're encouraging people to send their photos if they get the chance to get over to Lundy, and we'll just keep trying to grow the whole project.
Okay, and then, well, there's quite a lot of general questions, nice compliments on a great talk. One which is quite nice is Dribble's wonky jaw a result of her getting winded?
Well, we really don't know. When we first saw her, she was already quite an adult seal, and as I say, the first photos we didn't even realise that she had this wonky jaw, but she seems to manage perfectly well with it. We've been seeing her for 4 years now. I suspect, yes, it's probably an injury for an early on.
Okay, so there are an awful lot more questions in the chat that the seal specialists are going to have to delve into the chat and reply to people. I think especially there's maybe some younger viewers out there that are really having their inquisitiveness about natural history enhanced by this presentation, so it would be great if they could be answered. And then also some crosstalk about fisheries and various other issues that are useful to everyone. So without further ado, I'll thank you very much, Kate. You can now relax and enjoy the rest of the show. Next up, we have Sarah Greenslade, and she's going to talk about South Devon-based surveys. And Sarah is the co-founder of the SEAL Project, a new conservation group in South Devon. And her presentation's up and her slideshow is ready to go. And so without further ado, over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I am Sarah Greenslade, co-founder of the SEAL Project, along with Duncan Kenny. We met in 2018. We're both BDLMR marine mammal medics, both from Brixham, and there is a bit of a unique seal hall out there, and we felt it needed a little bit of TLC, a bit of observation. So Duncan had done a human wildlife conflict paper, and we were both sending in IDs for seals at that point anyway and taking photographs. So we discussed a project, and the day we met up to do that, we ended up rescuing a seal, a feisty male with a nasty jaw wound, and he ended up going up to our SPCA West Hatch, and that was it. SEAL Project was born. And a year later, we became a registered charity. So that was, well, a year ago. So we've done quite a bit. So this is our hometown, Brixham. It's one of the largest fishing ports by market value. I think it is the largest one by market value. And with the seals haul out on the wave screen of the marina, as you can see on the right-hand side of the picture. So it is a bit of a strange place to find seals, directly opposite a fishing port. They can't be accessed where they are, and they find this quite a increasingly favourable place to haul out. So when we started, we had low numbers. They are still low numbers by comparison to most sites, but we are increasing. So here you go. This is the same image, the same view, two different views of the seals that we observe. So they are literally within yards of the fishing port, and they chill out here. They move around different wave screens at different times, but they are inaccessible by foot, so they can only be reached by boat, and they're surrounded on 3 sides. So all they've got to do if they feel threatened in any way is just flop off the side, and then they're in deep water. They can go in any direction they choose. So it's quite unique in itself, and they are actually, because they're on the marina, they are pretty much got 24-hour surveillance. So they're very lucky seals. And then at the end of the wave screen, they are protected on all the others. There is just this one rogue platform, and at the last week or so, this has been their favoured spot. And you would think they wouldn't want to hang out here because they are clearly accessible and visible to everything and everybody. But this has been their hangout, and I think we've had a number on there today. But again, if they want to move, they can jump off there in any direction. But you can see the fishing port is right opposite them, and they have the lifeboat go past, or the tripping boats, all sorts. They take very little notice. And this was taken a couple of days ago. This doesn't bother them. They were quite oblivious to the welding going on within meters of them. It was crazy, but they've got used, there's a lot of ambient noise in the area, above and below the water, and they seem to know when to feel threatened. A few weeks ago, we had horns blown for a memorial, and I was actually on the marina at the time and observed these seals. They took no notice. A few of them looked up, and then they put their heads down and carried on snoozing. Having been to Cornwall to see the way seals react to somebody coughing on a cliff, it's quite a fascinating comparison. So last year, we monitor the seals regularly on the wave screen, to which I send Kate and everybody massive stuff. We get to know quite a few of the seals. Some of them come back, some we never see again. But having had access to a boat a few times, we did realise there was other locations to find seals that could do with observations and surveys. So we, as well as doing local community stuff, talks, and working in schools, we figured we needed to get ourselves a boat and get out and see what else we could find out about our shoreline. So we submitted a proposal to Torbay Harbour authorities, asking them if we could have permission to observe the coastline and 40-kilometre stretch of coast, and they said yes. So we had to get a boat. There's nothing else for it. So there you go. We got our boat. We bought this in February last year, and then we went into lockdown. So we were only able to use it a couple of times. But Lee Allen, he does all our skippering and all the maintenance, and he takes us wherever we ask him to take us. So unfortunately, lockdown prevented us from using it for a few months. We just got to walk past it and observe it. But it's been really valuable to us so far, and we look forward to getting out on it more this year. So when we've been out and about, a bit like Kate said, there's an awful lot of disturbance. On foot, kayakers, paddleboarders. Paddleboarders are a big thing up these days, along with the jet skis, general pleasure boats, so much. And in this particular location, a bit like Kate said earlier, the seals don't seem bothered. That's the frustrating part, because you want to try and tell people not to disturb the seals, but actually they don't like it when they realise they can get that close. And in theory, the seals don't seem overly bothered, although obviously we know they are. This was a good one. We have had some fun with some of the commercial tour operators, and on this occasion we were observing the seals. It was a bit of a dull, damp day, and our boat had turned around, because as you can see, it's got wildlife survey splashed across the front, so we're not hiding what we're doing. But the boat was back on to where these guys went past, and as you can see, it almost looks like they've got the seal on the back of the jet ski. And then our boat turned round and they turned round, and when you can read wildlife survey on the front of a boat, it did give them some facial expressions were quite amusing at the time. We did engage with these people, and they said they won't do the same thing, but of course we're not there all the time, so you just don't know, do you? And again, there's the local commercial coasteering tours. Again, you can try and engage, but they stand there. The seal takes a lot of notice, so they're not going to take a huge amount of notice of us, unfortunately. But it's not helping the education if they think this is acceptable. So again, it's something else we maybe need to, work on. And we observed a pupping site for a few weeks. We did this land and sea-based from a variety of angles and locations, and we recorded an awful lot of disturbance. Commercial wildlife operator, we had contact with him. No, I won't go too close. Well, maybe you did. We watched people actually go down over the cliff attached to a rope, which was obviously something they'd done before. We've watched people go on the beach, and kayakers. You can't stop everybody, but it's frustrating. We felt very engaged emotionally with these guys, with the seal pups and the seals, and we watched a lot of behaviour that we intend to bring forward into the next season, and see what we can do to prevent more disturbances going forward. But while we were there, we did observe some fantastic moments, some amazing moments. As you can see, this young gull is actually trying to eat the umbilical cord of the seal pup, which obviously woke it up, and it shuffled itself behind the rock. But when would you see these things? You know, it's quite fascinating. And then the other picture is one of the pups having its first swim, which was beautiful. And we hopefully both these seals went on to become young pups, happy pups. So then not everything has a happy ending, does it? This was our beautiful Flame. She was first seen by us in January 2019, and she had the most amazing coloration. We've had a few seals in the area with these colours, and she was just stunning. And we watched her go through her first molt, to which, as you can see, the markings on her are just amazing. And then we didn't see her for a while, and we had reports of her in a slightly different location. And as with everything we do, we get call outs to deceased seals, pups mostly, in certain times of year. And we've been out to one that one particular day that was just not a lot of it. And I remember saying to Duncan at the time, I dread the day we come across one we recognise and one we know. And later that day, we got the call for this one, which was, well, we didn't know who it was at the time, but as soon as we got there, we knew. And it was tough to take, because you get emotionally involved with the seals, you get to know them, you follow their behaviours, but it's all part of the learning curve of, you know, what we've got ourselves involved in. And yeah, so sad, but we keep her memory going. And then we had this little character. We had a trip out on the boat, and we'd seen a small seal. We didn't take a lot of notice. Eventually we worked out it was the same seal. So we thought this entangled seal arrived in Brixham with this plastic around his neck. Turned out this happened in Brixham, which is awful. Thankfully, he managed to clear himself of the plastic within a week, and he comes back and he hangs out on that same girder, doing a bit of yoga and a bit of singing, and he's a fantastic character. And he's now learning to socialise. He didn't like being approached by other seals, but we have seen him interacting with other juvenile seals in the area. So he's a little character. Because of him, we decided we needed to do some litter cleaning. Being in a marine, a harbour area, a work harbour area, there's a lot of litter. So in 3 months, we picked up 226 full sacks of marine debris, and we could keep going. We could go back and do that over and over and over. So this is another one of our characters, or was, I think unfortunately he's gone, but we had a link up with this one with Dorset, with Sarah Hodgson. She recognised the picture of him. That's when he swam up to us, in the picture below, when we were on our boat to beg for food. We ignored him, the other guy didn't. And we posted this on social media, and Sarah recognised him as a seal they know as eyeline. So we know this seal travels between South Devon and Dorset. We unfortunately think he has recently passed away. But a very efficient council cleared up the body, and we don't know if it's him or not, but we have no proof, so you never know. And then we have Taggies. So this one was rescued thanks to Marion from Cornwall Seal Group. She found this one out for us. This Taggy was rescued in France in 2017, and we saw him a couple of years later on one of our surveys. So that was 150 miles across the channel. That's pretty cool. And then we had this one on our opposite survey, and Sue found out the name of this one, Pippi Longstocking. I absolutely love that name. So this was an easy tag to read, because as we all know, anybody that sees the tags, some of them are just impossible, absolutely impossible. But I think we've had about 6 now, so that's quite cool. And there you go. This was Lucille, and again, Sue matched this one up, didn't you, Sue? Okay. So obviously Sue said about this one, and again, this is our travelling flower. She is a bit of a devil, but as you can see, she's got the flower pattern on the side of her face. That's how we identify her. Although I don't technically think that was her original name. And we get to see a lot of other wildlife, dolphins, porpoises, seabirds. Amazing what these guys do. And we've learned a lot about disturbances. We see a few occasions of glass bottles being thrown by anglers. There's a lot of work to be done on trying to educate people, but you can't do everything. So again, we've reported different things. We're recognising our seals. I spend an awful lot of time doing the IDs, which I love. And we understand the tides and the weather a bit better now. It's nothing like packing a picnic to go surveying on your boat, only to find that it's too rough to get out of the bay. So we sit on the boat and eat it anyway. And always expect the unexpected. This was a very special moment for us. We got a call out to a deceased seal, only this was a preterm pup, still in her birth sac, with the umbilical attached. It was only a matter of hours old, and with a bit of help from somebody with a bit of knowledge, we decided we would create our own version of Septimus and Augusta, and this is what we created. So this is Juliet. So hopefully at some point we can get Septimus, Augusta and Juliet together, which would be really cool. So there. So other than that, we have, obviously being in a commercial fishing port, pollution concerns. As you can see on the left-hand side is where the seals are hauling out at the moment. So effectively, if they're down there now, they would be amongst that. There's plenty of issues for us to think about and plenty for us to try and engage relationships to deal with this better. And there you go. We've got to modify the boat so it's usable all year round. It's all very well being the skipper in the dry, but sat on the back you can get a bit damp. And we just want to get out surveying as soon as we can and increase our awareness and our knowledge. As with everybody else, we've all been stopped doing what we would like to do, but we would like to continue to grow and learn. So there you go.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So we have some questions, some comments. The first question from Dave Toms is asking about, is there a mutual relationship with the seals and the fishermen? They think they're being fed and therefore explaining their relative habituation to humans.
Yeah, we do have some issues of it. There's certain seals that do beg, and certain fishermen and anglers think that it's okay to feed them, so they do. I came across a guy a while ago who I've been feeding the seal for 20 years. It's quite plainly it's never going to be the same seal, so you've been feeding a lot of seals. Again, people think they're doing the right thing, but obviously it's true if they're not fed. Again, education.
Okay, and then Bob Earl says that there's 20 plus seals at Start Point and Great Sledden Rocks that you might want to be looking at. There's some comments from Sue, Sarah, from Helen and Dittison. Excuse me if my Scottishness hasn't made me pronounce that wrongly, but they've got 21 seals hauled out there that you might want to look at on pontoons. And then,
yeah, we have. And
then Ocean Fox is asking, and I guess it's a wider thing, about the tours and disturbance. There's been a lot of work done on this in Cornwall with a voluntary code. Ocean Fox is saying, can these tours be fined? But clearly it's much better if there could be a concerted action with the sector to make behaviour good rather than looking to punish offenders. Is there anything being done in a kind of more holistic sense with these operators to try and bring them together to maybe have a coastal code in Devon like they have in Cornwall?
Yeah, there is the WISE scheme, which Sue knows more about than I do. But yeah, I think it's engaging with a lot of these operators. We've spoken to a few of them and they all think they're doing the right thing, but to us it's slightly not the right thing. But again, it's people have been doing the same thing for years, and obviously the seals are where we are slightly more visible. So it's trying to get people to understand, to give them distance.
Okay, and there's lots of resources being pasted in and facts about disturbance that people can have a wee look at and paste out into their own email while it's still there. Alison's asking, do you work with local councils to train them to contact you when they find a dead seal, etc.?
We've got good relationships with Torbay Harbour authorities to inform us if they've got them. So yeah, we've got quite good contacts that do generally give us a shout and let us know what's going on. Again, it's you know, we're only fairly new to the scene, so it's just you know, getting people to appreciate that what we're out here to do.
I'm just trying to, there's some more facts about seal fisheries aquaculture conflict in the chat, but I'm looking for questions. Oh, there's an interesting one. If people are going to, you know, obviously you're not going to go too close and disturb the seals to be part of the monitoring, but what focal length lens do you find most useful for photo ID? Presumably that means you're far enough away. So what would be the kind of lens that you should use?
Oh, that's a cracking question, and I'm going to go very blank on that one because I forget.
Sorry,
what I've
don't
got.
worry. We'll get Sue to answer that. If you just
I've got a big camera with a long lens, but I can't
I
remember
can
what
tell
it is.
you that I've just put it in the chat. We use 3000mm lens or 2000mm lenses, Nikon P900 or Nikon P1000. They're bridge cameras.
Okay, that's great. And then, are there seal populations near the Skerries Bank and surrounding MCZ? I would need to look at
I know where that is.
Maybe that's one that the seal rangers could have a wee quick Google and feedback. Some nice compliments, Sarah. There's more talk about conflict issues in Scotland fisheries. So here's one from Josephine. When you find a dead seal, do you ever give them to educational institutes? What actually happens to the dead seal?
On the whole, they're the responsibility of the landowners. So it would be down to Torbay Coast and Countryside Trust or Torbay Harbour authorities to deal with generally. Okay.
Sunday's apologising for being late, but don't worry. The whole thing will be recorded and will be posted on the web. But also there'll be a link sent to everybody that was everybody that was showed interest on the Eventbrite. There was somebody got their finger bitten off feeding a fish to a seal. Somebody's mum told them that story. It was in Brixham. And also, I guess maybe the last one. Are there any postmortems carried out on dead seals?
Not in Devon, no. They do in Cornwall, but not up here. Not that I'm aware of.
And Matt Slater's just sent a message to everyone. In Cornwall, please report any dead stranded seals to the Marine Strandings Network. And maybe, Matt, you could post that link in for anybody that's new to the group in the interest area. Yeah, there's more stuff coming in from Sue. But Sue's going to have to stop posting comments and pass it on to the rest of her colleagues now, because we're going to have a UK overview from her. So thank you very much, Sarah, and back to Sue again.
There we go. Okay, thank you very much to Kate and to Sarah. Obviously, it's fab to get presentations from some of our photo ID hubs. I would just add that obviously Disturbance has come out from both those talks, which I hadn't necessarily anticipated. But I would add that even if seals don't look as if they're being disturbed, there is a metabolic consequence for them, because they have a hormone release, stress response. They have raised breathing rates, raised heart rates, which, if chronic, can have quite a significant effect on them. So for us, disturbance is always a waste of energy. Sometimes it results in injury, as I showed you when they scoot off the beach, and occasionally it can be fatal for mums and unborn pups. But we're quite aware of the fact that disturbance is a massive issue, and that's why we're focusing on it this year. So Andy Otway, who's on the call today, set up the Seal Alliance, and we now have a disturbance working group of grassroots seal research organisations who've joined together to try and work on this issue and share all their expertise and best practice. This was really driven for us when Andy funded us to do some survey work, some systematic survey work, which Katie Bellman, our research ranger, led, of seals and human activity. So we looked at seals and we looked at human activities and looked at the overlap and potential conflict between the two. This is what a 2-hour survey looks like at one of our survey sites. It's tripper boats, non-motorised vessels, other motorised vessels. You can see just how busy it is 1 hour either side of low tide. So Katie arranged surveys at 4 sites, 2 in St Ives Bay, 1 at Newquay and 1 in Mounts Bay, and got some students and some citizen scientists to do systematic surveys over that 2-hour window, as I said, over low tide. And 140 hours worth of survey results were actually included in the final report, which she wrote for Seal Alliance for Andy Otway. To cut a long story short, these were the disturbance events that occurred multiple times every hour, and the 2 St Ives sites were the worst affected in terms of seal reactions and in terms of disturbance events. So most frequently disturbed area was disturbed once every 14 minutes, which was quite shocking and shows just how chronic this issue can be for some seals. But the really interesting outcome from the research was the fact that the cause of seal disturbance at each of these sites was different. In Newquay and Mounts Bay, it was mostly air-based, which we hadn't necessarily anticipated. Mounts Bay, non-motorised boats and tripper boats. St Ives 2 was virtually all tripper boats, a majority tripper boats, I should say, and St Ives 1 was air-based tripper boats and ribs, particularly ribs. So the summary of this work showed that disturbance was high everywhere and multiple events every hour. St Ives had the highest rate. Tripper boats and ribs were implicated everywhere except at Newquay. And we did record all levels of disturbance, which we generally don't do in our routine opportunistic stuff. So level 1 is a seal looking towards the disturbance stimulus, level 2 moving towards the sea, level 3 into the sea. So as a result of all this work in 2019, we decided we needed to focus on this in 2021. So we've managed to get a Green Recovery Challenge Fund grant based on the idea that habitat will be improved if disturbance is reduced. So in 2021, we will be repeating the 2019 surveys. And this is the really exciting stuff, is looking at stakeholder management. So getting some grassroots people from across the sectors. So it will be operators, activity providers, hoteliers, fishers, wide range of users in probably a virtual Zoom room together, talking about the issue and starting to think about management activities that are possible, but grassroots driven, not top down driven, so that we can share best practice and report on the findings as a case study. Because if this stakeholder system works for a specific site, then that's great, we can roll it out nationally. If it doesn't work, we can try and work out why it didn't work and then have another trial run, try and improve it. But the Seal Alliance, using Emily Pollitt, who was our Creativity and Activity Ranger, shared key wording and messages that we wanted to get across to the members of the public. And we've produced a leaflet called Watching Seals Well, of which we've got money to get 40,000 copies done very soon. This is the outside of the leaflet with all the groups and looking for signs of disturbance. And this is the inside of the leaflet. So the inside of the leaflet doubles both as a poster and a sign. And what we're hoping is that this will go up at all our partner organisations in the Seal Alliance, from the Eithne Estuary in Scotland, Friends of Horsey in East Anglia, St Mary's in North Tyneside, North West Wales, hopefully in South Wales, and also here in the South West. People who visit seals will see this sign. It will be a consistent sign everywhere with consistent messaging, which will hopefully get the word across. We also have a website for the Seal Alliance, currently with a holding page, but if you're interested in finding more out about this work, do please sign up for updates, because they'll be coming very soon. We've also developed a policy about presenting photos of seals online for public consumption. This is going to be a challenging one for us, without any doubt, but basically, if a seal is looking at a camera, there is a really good chance that seal has already been disturbed. So we're aiming to only share, where possible, seals not looking at the camera. Seals looking relaxed and comfortable, preferably taken from distance, and if they look like this one, that they're taken close up, although you can probably tell from the quality it's not, then we're explaining that we're using our zooms, encouraging everybody to use their zoom, and we're only using photos of small numbers of seals to prevent driving up disturbance levels. We're going to be using generic location names, so we don't use specific sensitive site names. We use names like West Cornwall, and as I said, it's work in progress. So we do have a lot of resources that still have seals looking at the camera, but we ethically can't chuck all those away. So we will phase them out as they come to their end of life. But we have this new photo policy that we're all working towards. So Seal Alliance is one of the national groups that I chair, that Seal Disturbance Working Group. But we've also managed to get a Seal Network UK set up. This is an advisory group to statutory agencies. It's very exciting and potentially going to make the biggest difference for seals. Apologies, I've just scooted forwards. This is the group that asked for our advice and information for the amendments to the Conservation of Seals Act, which now I am delighted to say, you'll have probably seen it in the chat because Andy's been talking about it, now prevents intentional reckless killing, injuring or taking of seals, whereas previously there had been a loophole in the law, but from March 2021 that loophole of the Netsman's Defence will have gone. And I'm delighted as well that the Seal Alliance disturbance signs and leaflets have also been endorsed by DEFRA, which is fabulous to get their support, and hopefully they'll be sharing it wider with comms. And then finally, to finish with Clean Catch UK. So Dan Jarvis, who is our Vice Chair and also Welfare Officer for British Divers Marine Life Rescue, and I are both on a national steering group for Clean Catch UK. It's a new group, cross-taxa, aimed at reducing wildlife bycatch. As you can see, this is the website. It's for monitoring and reducing, where possible, eliminating the accidental bycatch of all creatures. It's great to have a cross-taxa group. And this is DEFRA delivering their commitments to the Fisheries Act, their 25-year environment plan and the Marine Strategies Framework Directive. So please do visit their website and go and have a look and find out more. It's great to finally get a definition of bycatch, and the definition also includes entanglement, which of course can be dead entanglement or live entanglement. So if you need a definition of bycatch, it's there on their website for you. The group is working at 3 scales, locally, regionally and nationally, and I'm absolutely delighted to say that this is the Southwest leading the way. It's not down to us, but it's great that the Southwest is a key focus to start with. So we have the regional working group in the Southwest that's providing technical oversight of the programme and feeding into the policy. This is how Clean Catch is set up. So we've got a national steering group that Dan and I are feeding into that informs DEFRA, but there is this regional working group for the Southwest and a local focus group. And you could see how communication occurs between all those aspects of the organisation. What I'm really excited about is there's going to be a new UK Bycatch Mitigation Hub. So they are collating potential mitigation methods that have been successful to varying degrees and putting them all on their website. They'll be launched very soon. It's a great place to go and find out about how we can solve this issue of bycatch, potentially as well as lost gear, but it's a really exciting development that we're super keen on. And also Southwest fishermen are pioneering the way, which is great to see. This is a brand new Clean Catch UK app for voluntarily recording bycatch. It's been specifically designed, it's actually 6 apps, but the 6 apps prevent too much overlap and repetition for fishers. So the fishers are in Mevagissey are being encouraged to report all bycatch that they collect, and obviously have onboard cameras to verify that data. And how do we participate in that? What's our purpose?
We're up to time, Sue. Sorry, I thought you were nearly finished. I didn't
No,
give you the 2-minute warning.
Last slide. This is what we contribute. Sorry, Brendan, This is what we contribute. A dead seal, 31st of January in Cornwall. Turns out we knew this seal. You might be able to see the photo ID match, and we first met it 2 years previously. We realised then that we'd known this seal pre-entanglement. It's called Netty Bird Feeder. And actually the last photo we had of it alive was on the 24th of December. So within a month, this animal had died and washed up on a beach. This is the kind of evidence that people in offices in London never get to see. So it's really critical. And this is the bit of net that came off that seal. So if you were ever in doubt that beach clean makes a difference, picking up a bit of net that size would have saved that animal's life potentially. Get in touch with Clean Catch UK, it's critical. And literally to finish, we have a survey monkey. Sorry, Brendan, last but one slide. Survey monkey, please tell us what you thought of the talks. Follow the link, it'll be put in the chat by Loena. Tell us what you think of the talks. We really need to know so we can make them better. There's also a QR code to that survey monkey. And finally, British Divers Marine Life Rescue have this crowdfunder that's literally launched today. We desperately need a fit for purpose hospital in order to cope with the large number of dead seals that are being recorded, particularly molted pups. So please support the British Divers Marine Life Rescue crowdfunder. We are supporting it. We're not fundraising at the moment while that's active because we want everything to be focused at that crowdfunder. Thanks very much. I have finished, Brendan.
Thank you very much, Sue. And we have a few questions that I'm sure will take us up to time. From Trevina Rees, are there natural disturbances that have a big impact, i.e. particularly stormy? Does this reduce pupping or change the sites as significantly?
Wow, that's a fabulous question. Yes, of course there are natural disturbances. Great big waves crashing against rocks amazingly tend not to disturb seals. They're obviously well tuned into those sounds, but things like rock falls, extreme weather events saturate our cliffs. We have rock falls. They tend to respond to those. Ravens, other corvids, other birds, particularly turnstones. You might have seen on our social media feed, David and Goliath, turnstone picking a seal's nose. That causes disturbance. So yes. And we record natural disturbance just as we record human disturbance because it's all part of that same big picture for an individual seal experience.
So linked to that, Constance asks, do you think what do you think the climate change impacts on seal populations will be?
Oh, massive and varied. I suspect that haul-outs will change, but I think seals will probably adapt to those haul-out changes. But things like extreme weather events linked to climate change are trashing more gear in ground swells, so we're getting more lost fishing gear. And then big storms affecting our females, separating pups. Basically, a big storm on pupping season on a high tide will probably wash out all pups from beaches. In 2017, Storm Brian probably cleared all our beaches of pups. And as a result of that, females get in a hormonal mess. And we had a 46% drop in pups the following year, probably because their hormones were messed up or they had health complications like mastitis. And then back in 2019, we were kind of back to where we had been in 2017. So I think there are multiple ways, Brendan, that we haven't even begun to think of yet, really.
Okay. Mary asks, what do you think about seals interacting with divers? Do you assume that they're not in a state of stress when they follow and interact in this situation?
Okay, so it's all about on a seal's terms, isn't it? Apologies, I forgot to masking tape my cats to the wall before we started. Oh, now I've lost my train of thought, Brendan.
Diving, is it all right to interact with seals when you're diving?
It's all about doing it on a seal's terms. So if a seal's approaching you, we don't encourage people to deliberately seek encounters with seals in the water, but if you're diving and swimming and a seal approaches you, that is not disturbance. If you deliberately keep its attention and prevent it, attract its attention and prevent it from losing interest and moving away, then that could be disturbance. But effectively, the best practice is to be benign in the water, keep moving, don't necessarily look overly interesting, because you're probably the most interesting thing the seal's seen in the water all day, and they'll hang around if you're interesting. So the best thing to do is be benign, keep moving, do your thing, and ignore them.
And you know, the webinar today has been about the southwest, but I think it's quite nice to see the comment from Ocean Fox, wanting to thank you guys for helping them in the States. I'm presuming that's the United States, to stay motivated and continue their seal work there. It gets depressing at times, but every time they hear your talks, it energizes them and helps them move forward. So effectively, you're helping harbour seals here too in ways you may not be aware of. Lots of other nice comments, and I'm just looking to see if there's a question. So here's one. I think maybe we'll make this the last question. Do the seals have a bit of a feel for bad weather arriving and move to a safer area, or do they just take the weather as it comes?
So I
That's
think
from
this
Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa. Very good question. I think this is linked back to the ecozoic, which is also a great place to finish. Seals have understandings of things that we can't even begin to imagine. And I suspect that they understand fully about tides and waves and storms and pressure, air pressure and bad weather coming in. I'd be really surprised if they didn't. I know from a young seal pup experience, cut a long story short, the seal pup would not be fed by its mother. It kept moving up the beach, and I couldn't understand why it was ignoring its mother's milk until a massive wave came in and lapped literally just behind its rear flippers. And I just got the feeling that day that that seal pup knew that big wave was coming, even though I didn't. So I'd be really surprised if they couldn't tell that sort of thing. They're just cleverer than us because they have to be to survive in that amazing environment.
Right. Well, that we're going to end it. That's been a fantastic hour and a half. We've had a constant between 250 and 300 people attending. It's going to be recorded and we're going to put it out online. Lots of thank yous coming in the chat. And I would like to acknowledge the support of Megan Francis and Lowena Jones in the background, keeping me organised and making it all happen. And thank you to all our presenters. And if you want, you can unmute yourself for a minute and give them your seal of approval and a round of applause.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Brendan, and thanks to everybody for joining us. We do hugely appreciate it. Sealed needs it all. So it's great that everybody's interested.